My story. I went psychotic. Disclaimer: my story may be triggering to some of you. And just so you know, I'm doing a voiceover and I have to use my notes because I don't want to film myself as I talk about these things. And I have to look down at these notes a lot because it's a lot to remember and recount. So I just hope that I can explain this well, and I hope for those of you who don't know much anything about this topic that you can leave knowing at least a little bit of something. So, this is my story, and I went psychotic. This April of 2021 makes it 4 years since when it happened to me. It was April of 2017. And I'll be adding in some random thoughts here and there, not just my notes, but I'll mostly just stick to my notes here for time's sake and so that I can stay just on track, I guess, on the main events. And it helps to have it all down and laid out in front of me. So I went psychotic at school. This was college at BYU, Idaho, 2017 spring semester. While I was there, I lost like 10 pounds in like 2 weeks, and I was only there able to last for those 2 weeks. So it was technically 11 days. And yeah. You must be thinking, why the hell tell the internet? Well, I'll just say right now, a lot of you guys are strangers, and I only told certain people in my life about my channel. Plus, my more conservative friends and family probably won't ever find my channel because it's a unique name. So, the question is, have I told people in real life? Yes, obviously, my roommates knew, the people that I texted knew. I'll explain that. My parents and immediate family knew, and then my close friends knew, especially my best friend at the time, because she, as well as my mom, they came to take me to the hospital. So, of course, she obviously knew. She was so nice. She missed work. She traveled just under 10 hours to help me from our hometown to my school, and that's a long ass drive, and she was just so kind about it and just a great friend. And I remember that she cried, and it was just, I don't know. Anyway, so I've told a few close friends what happened to me, but you have to be careful with a topic like this, so I really haven't told a lot of people. So this experience I keep mostly private, but I just feel really inclined that I'm supposed to share my story like I am right now. So it's just there's this taboo about it, and there's a stigma attached to it when you go psychotic, and you will be judged for it, and you might be seen as crazy or dangerous, not right, not normal, but it's not true. So some of it is still a blur, but I remember most of it, which is very unusual and rare if you go psychotic, if you know anything about that. And I don't know how or why I can recount and have these flashbacks, but it's just so in my brain. It's crazy. So, speaking of remembering most of it, this is something that bothers me, and I'm still kind of sort of butthurt over it. But anyway, someone I know really hurt my feelings this one day, and I'm just kind of still upset over it. But anyway, it's whatever, I guess. It's just when I told them that I remembered most of what happened this time in my life where I went psychotic, they said then maybe it wasn't as bad. And I was like, okay. So they downplayed the scariest thing that's ever happened to me. And you don't say that to someone who went through this very traumatic thing in their life. So the whole thing was so bad. And this was just a very mean thing that was said to me. And honestly, I didn't tell the person that it upset me, but I guess I'm saying it now. So I just really hate psychosis, and I hate that it happened to me. I wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. It's like you're caught in a nightmare. And an interesting fact that I found out, 1 in 13 people will have been psychotic by the age of 75. This usually happens in adolescence or young adulthood, and that was what happened to me. So people don't really talk about it, and people who experience psychosis sometimes end their lives. So again, there's that stigma out there, and it just needs to be talked about more because it's a giant problem, and it's more than a problem. So please know that it will all be okay if you are struggling now with this or with another health challenge, whether you see it or if it's an internal challenge, like in your mind. And just know that there are people who want to help you, and that there are people that you are able to go to if you need the help. I'll just define some words really fast. So, psychosis, a severe mental disorder in which thought and emotions are so impaired that contact is lost with external reality. And then psychotic, relating to, denoting, or suffering from a psychosis. So, a little bit of my background: I've been diagnosed with tendencies and or traits of schizophrenia, and this happened after I went psychotic 4 years ago. And before that, I had been diagnosed with anxiety, ADD, major depression, and traits of OCD. And I'm also bipolar as well. So, yeah, I have quite the laundry list, I guess. Now I'm going to define schizophrenia. So, it's a serious mental disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally, and schizophrenia may result in some combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking and behavior that impairs daily life, and it can be disabling. And there are 3 different phases. I don't know if I'm going to say this right, but prodromal, that's the beginning, acute, the active, and then the recovery. So these phases tend to occur in order, and they go throughout the course of the illness. And people who develop schizophrenia may have one or many psychotic episodes during their lifetime. So, when I looked up some info and stories regarding psychosis as well as schizophrenia, I found some correlations, and there seem to be like 3 trends almost, if you want to call them that. So, aliens and the government as well as electronics. So, if you've seen the movie A Beautiful Mind, you can get an idea of in the mind of a person experiencing a psychotic state of mind, and that's kind of interesting to me. And also, this is kind of sort of random, but if you describe things or instances or experiences as psycho or psychotic, please don't and please stop, because it's like if you call anything or anyone gay or a retard, it's cruel and not okay. So to preface this, or to give a synopsis, I was hearing, and I sometimes still do hear things. So I was hearing voices, seeing things. I was paranoid beyond paranoia, terrible and terrifying experiences there while at school and even at home for a time. So I was experiencing mania there, which is a symptom of bipolar and or psychosis and being psychotic. So then I was later diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And I was terribly sleep deprived there, which caused the psychosis especially. So I didn't sleep for almost 2 weeks. I ran on probably, I don't know, just a few hours of sleep every night, probably 1 to 3. And I lost about just under 8 pounds in less than 2 weeks. So the thing that bothered me the most about this whole thing was when I was going through it, it felt so real and it happened so fast, yet it felt like it was in slow motion. I remember it like it was just the other day, and it was almost as if I was in a normal state of mind, because I can recount those experiences in my head. And it's just so annoying and frustrating that my mind thought that it was real, and that is really disturbing to me. So now I'll finally and officially just go ahead and talk about it, just the details, the things that I can recollect, I guess. So I would go online and I thought that everything was about me, and that was one of the big first signs, I feel like. So I would go on to YouTube, I would come across ads, I would just find things and think that they were about me, not in a conceited way, but rather in a very paranoid way. So I would make very strange comments because of that mindset. And I thought that people back home where I lived, my hometown, they were going to do like a kind of march thing for me, like to come and save me, which is just unbelievable to think as I think back. And also, I made bizarre things. I would write things down and tape them everywhere, like on the TV and on the front door. And I would later find them in the garbage, so I knew that my roommates had thrown them away. And then there was this guy who came over, I think, to like, I don't know, come over, hang out with somebody in my dorm. And I didn't trust him at all, and I told my roommate about that, how I was like concerned for her, just so weird. So I remember this very clearly in my mind. So one of my roommates, she had a guy friend over, and this is a different one and a different guy. But I thought that they were talking about me, and I would ask them on and off throughout the conversation, just like, "Are you guys talking about me?" And then my roommate would say no over and over, and then she would finally yell, like, um, I'm trying to remember like how it was said, but like, it's not all about you, you know? And I almost like cried because I didn't know what was going on. So later she would friend request me on Facebook only to unfriend me a few days later. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I was about to unfriend her, but I couldn't find her. So, and then no sleep and electronics. So I remember my roommate, she told me that she woke up to the light of my phone. So she saw me on the phone in the night, and that was basically the first night there, and I just couldn't sleep. I didn't know what to do with myself. So I accidentally woke her up, I guess. And I would sleep with the light on. My roommate eventually had to go just a few days into the new semester to a family funeral, and it was a good thing that I was alone in that room because I was so off and I did weird things. I said weird things that didn't make sense. I had the just just I don't know. It was very strange. So I slept with the night light on. Well, I do now is what I'm trying to say because I'm like 5 years old. But seriously though, it's because I'm a very paranoid individual. And then I remember another night I went into my roommate's room, not the one who I would stay with because she was at the funeral. But I went in there 2 different times, or their rooms. So there was the 2 sets. I think there were 6 of us, including me. So one time I went in there, I turned on the light, and I was like, I can't sleep. Then another time I went to the other room with the other 2 girls, and I turned on the light, and then I went up to one of the girls and I woke her up and I talked about how my wings, they weren't allowing me to fly, very strange. So I heard a weird noise and I was hearing things, and then my roommate had me go in her bed and our backs were back to back, and I would I would feel her like press up against my back every time I started to cry and talk, and that honestly kind of helped me. It was like therapy. And she's also an elementary ed. She's probably like graduated by now, but she really helped me. This was the same one who, yelled at me earlier. But anyway, so that's one thing. And I was having a lot of panic attacks. I even remember laying in the bath this one time in my dorm. There's 2 different bathrooms in there. And I don't remember if there was any water on or if I was in my clothes still, but I was just sobbing on the phone and I was talking to my ex, who was then turned into a boyfriend again. He would text me almost every day for a few months after. He was really concerned about me. I didn't text anyone. I wasn't on my phone. I didn't interact basically with anyone outside of my house for at least a month, and that was including anyone on my phone. So I was not on electronics or social media or anything. And we broke up shortly after I felt well again, and I just had to take care of myself, and I couldn't be with him anymore because he wasn't good for me and he was abusive. I do think he cared, especially because I would see his texts almost every single day since I got sick, up to the point where I was back on my phone, if that makes sense. Like, I could go back and see all of those texts day after day where I didn't answer him because I was sick and he was just really concerned about me. Anyway, it was confusing, but that's a totally different story. So, and some other things, I also missed 3 days of class, and I'm honestly and truly glad that I did, just because I would have probably been sent to see someone, and I was already acting so crazy alone in my dorm. So imagine me being around a wide range in a big group. That would just not end very well. And I also remember sending some people, friends and family, some weird texts, and it was hard to go back and read them after I got more stable and out of the psychosis. So I have long since deleted all of these texts, but they still happened and I can't ever erase that. And I did apologize and everything to those people that were involved, those people that I went to. And it was all okay and everything, and they totally understand. It's just I feel bad for having gone to those people that I lost touch with and having said those weird things to them that made no sense. And I would send some other weird texts to random people, even my ex, and then a boy that I used to like in high school, and friends that I just didn't talk to anymore. And it was stuff like, "Do you want to help me write a book?" And it was just weird stuff. It doesn't sound that bad as soon as I say it like that, but it was way worse than that. Um, and I just want to roll my eyes for this part, but I sent a weird text to the bishop who contacted my parents about it. So I was basically like in the text in the middle of the night, the devil is knocking at the apartment door. And I can almost laugh about it now, but it was hell when it was happening. And to try to save myself, I drew basically a picture, an image of my dog on this small rock that I found, and I thought that it would save me from who was at the door, which I thought to be the devil himself, and it was just no words. Let's move on to the next thought. Also, I was calling people just all the time. I would hang up only to call them again and again. And I was just calling people constantly, like my parents and my boyfriend or ex, who became my boyfriend again while I was there. So it was just crazy. And my mom got some calls from some concerned friends after I posted some weird things, like on my Facebook. And those posts have long since been erased and deleted, and they were highly embarrassing going back to them when I was able to be strong enough to go back on my phone and things. And I felt like I could walk on air, that I could fly. And I told my mom that, and that was a big indicator that I was really not doing so well. And I remember how emotional everybody was when I had to go, when I packed and was on my way to the hospital. My roommates, they were emotional and I don't know, probably almost just as confused as I was. Well, I can't say that because if you're in a state of psychosis, you are the most confused out of probably anybody. But anyway, this is something more lighthearted, if something can be in this topic. But I survived off of cheesy things like Cheez-Its and the Tillamook small cheeses that are my favorites. So, a little fun fact about me, I really like cheese. And let's move on to something less random. So, and then my mom and my best friend, they show up at the apartment door, and I was just talking crazy in the front room at the time when they came in. I was told by my mom to pack up my things, and I packed up just so fast that she was very shocked and surprised. And I was talking about the end of the world as I did so, mostly to myself. I could have been institutionalized. It was so bad, and I felt like dying when we were in the car, and I felt like there would be a timeline when I would die at a certain time, and it was just very intense and very scary. And when we were going through the doors of the ER, me and my friend, while my mom went to park, I remember holding on to her like, the goal is not to come here. And I could almost laugh about it, but it was just so serious and intense when it was happening that I just can't. And I think why I remember all of this so well and why it still feels real sometimes, it's because I'm a person who can remember conversations and pull them out of my mind. And I'm very self-aware also. So I'm observant in myself and my emotions, and who knows, that could be why this is just so real to me even now. And I remember at the ER when I was on the table trying to sleep and not really able to succeed in that, I could hear some people from high school, and they obviously weren't there, but I could just hear them. And it was just very strange. I thought that they were in the hospital and that they were talking about me. And they did give me some stuff to sleep, and it should have put me out immediately, but it didn't, and I was awake for several more hours. And they let me go to the hotel with my mom and my friend, where I was finally, after a lot of hours, finally able to sleep. And I thought that I was honestly and truly dying on the way to the hotel. And the things that I was saying, they just didn't make sense. It just sounded like I don't even know what. And I remember thinking that I was a genius And I don't know why, but I told my mom and somebody else in my family. That's all I'm going to say. I won't say who. But a family member who I saw on our way out of town. And I remember that when I saw her, this person on my way back home, I remember that she told me these things weren't real and I didn't believe her. And it was very scary. And so for the next several weeks, and I still don't know why, but I thought we had to go to Canada, and my dad is Canadian, by the way, but to escape the attack of the aliens, the end of the world, like that movie, War of the Worlds. And somehow Trump was involved. I remember that. Obviously, this is all fake and not real, but it was very real in my head. And it was very hard to adjust to go back home, especially in this terrible state of mind. I left college after just 2 weeks, even less. I felt like a failure. And this actually surprisingly does happen to kids at college. It's not as rare as you would think when kids feel like they're going insane and they do experience a psychosis problem and experience. So, yeah. So, three very interesting things to me. I thought that I worked for the president at this time. I thought that press reporters were after me, or like the press and the reporters were after me, especially on the way home. And I was in a rush to get home where I thought it was safe, and of course it was. But anyway, something else. So, I thought that I was pregnant with baby Jesus, which means that I was Mother Mary, I guess. And so basically, the ex who I was really serious with at this time, and then eventually just broke up with after that Valentine's Day before that April when I felt like I was going crazy and kind of did. Anyway, I felt like he was Joseph and I was Mary, and we were going to have baby Jesus, and it was just bizarre beyond. And then I also thought I was abducted by aliens, and I still kind of do because of all the weird experiences that I had when this was just a big problem in my life, and just all of the unusual and weird experiences that I can remember growing up. So I'm even still unsure about this today. So, some things that happened when I got home and when I got help. First of all, something very interesting. Things seemed a lot smaller when I came back, like my whole town. It didn't seem as big and overwhelming. And that's a feeling that I'm never going to forget. And then my doctor, when I went to see my doctor, I remember asking him if it was okay if I sat on the floor. So that was interesting. And I did end up sitting on the floor. And then something else, there was a lady, I'll just call her the questioner person. I thought that she was a reporter, so I asked her about that, and she was not, I've come to find out. And I know that now, but she did say that she was a reporter, just so I didn't feel even crazier than I already was. And my doctor said that my brain was doing some very interesting things. From what I can remember him saying. And so I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder after this experience and after I went psychotic at this time. So I was just very angry with myself for it, for being bipolar and for having had this experience. And I've been able to almost entirely forgive myself by now. And so when I got home, I couldn't talk normally, and I felt like I was still crazy for a whole month, and my mom would end up sleeping on the floor by my bed for about a month. I didn't have my phone or any form of technology or electronics for this whole month, just trying to get turned around and in a good place and a solid and healthy state of mind. And I remember some days when I would return home, or I had returned home, and I remember some days I would talk to the internet box thing by the TV. I don't know what to call it. And I would just think that everything was about me. Like there would be a CD on in the background, and I thought the songs were about me, and I thought just everything. The radio and every station was just somehow, some way talking about me. And I thought that movies and shows, they would come to life and were somehow, some way related to me. This will sound weird, but shower curtains, they really freak me out, and I always want the curtain pulled back if there's no need to have it, across. And I would imagine monsters or aliens behind the shower curtain. And the water bill, I bet, was just outrageous those first few weeks when I got home. I would have baths just a lot a day. It was so stupid. I don't know why. And then this one time I thought the water coming out of the spout was red, that it was blood, and it was not my period. And yeah. But the scariest thing was this. There was the bruise and the bathroom and the birds, and if you've ever seen the movie The Birds, you might have an idea of what I'm about to say. So, long story short, it didn't feel so short when it was happening, but I could hear the birds trying to get into the bathroom. And there I was crying on the bathroom floor with my hands over my ears, and then I felt a pain on my wrist, and I watched a bruise form right before my eyes on my wrist. So, growing up, I remember that I would see things in the wall and on the wall. Like during a haircut, my mom, she would cut my hair, and I would just stare at the wall, and I would create images or just see things very strange. And then in my room of one of the homes that we lived in as I grew up, there was a tree on it, and I could see alien heads in it. Very strange. And then as I got older, I would usually lock and shut all the doors in the house when I was home alone, and I still do. And I believe that I actually lived in a haunted house for 10 years, and pretty crazy. And then there's a saying, paranoia will destroy you, and I really believe that. I feel like I'm being followed sometimes, like on walks. And I hate driving at night. I imagine things in the back seat. I love to drive during the day, but I feel stared at, or like other cars are alive and they're after me. And I see things in the corners and in the dark sometimes. I feel like people are staring at me. That could be the anxiety, the social anxiety, and I just see things in the dark, which is strange, which is why I have a nightlight. And so, a fun fact about me, I do believe in alien abductions, and I don't think that if you have had weird experiences, it automatically means that you are psychotic or have been that way or are a schizophrenic. I think that it can be very real if you do have anything, or if you don't. I think that aliens are real and experiences are too. And so, mostly my anxiety and insomnia, I think that it really caused what had happened to me. And I was technically away from home for the first time. I mean, there was girls' camp and then a church camp, but I've never been on my own that independent before. And plus, I had no meds for a year, so that also was a big problem. And I was off Statera, the only meds that I had in high school, for a year after I graduated in 2016. It was called Q96, something else I took, so it was a natural thing instead of meds, and it didn't really help. I found it was bold. It was supposed to help with your brain and the things and stuff wrong with it, like my anxiety and ADD and depression, for example, and Q96 just didn't help with that. So it took me so long to get diagnosed with bipolar and get help for the insomnia. And I've been on antipsychotics for sleep, and I've been able to sleep for the past 4 years, thank God. So, yeah. So, this was the scariest thing that has ever happened to me, and it was very real to me. It was a giant detachment from reality. And I've never had anything this scary happen to me, and I have concerns like, are people afraid of me, or were they when this was so obvious in my life, this health problem? And then, do people remember what happened to me? I don't want them to see me that way forever. So, well, that is my story. Not all of it, but most of it. I'm not comfortable with sharing every single thing about it. But anyway, I hope that you learned even one small thing about this illness and psychosis and what being psychotic is actually like. So, God bless and thank you for listening.